I guess let me begin by asking this question. How many folks have been to Colorado? Just let me get a raise of hands. Man, that's a lot of people. I'm hashtag jealous at the moment. So, okay, so just keep your hands up real quick. I can't really see most of you. I can, like, right here is just, if you're there, I can't see you at all. But over here, I can see good. Over there, I can see good. So just keep your hands up. If you have driven or ridden on the $1 Million Highway, keep your hands raised. It's a highway. Oh, we got one. I got one. The $1 Million Highway. So this, just keep your hand. I'm trying to see. Just Mike, Andy, anybody else? Okay, cool. So we got two folks. So if you got more questions, you can go to them afterwards and say, is it really like that? We've got pictures just in case you don't believe. We'll start showing them. The $1 Million Highway is a 12-mile stretch of remarkably scenic road from Ouray, Colorado. I don't know how you say that. We called the visitor center this morning. How was it, Brad? Ouray. Say it again. Ouray. Ouray, hooray. Okay, great. Ouray, Colorado to Silverton, Colorado. So we have some pictures. And so here's the deal. If you were to Google it, this road shows up on two different lists. Well, the 10 most beautiful scenic drives in the country, but also top 10 most dangerous drives in the country. There's a lack of guardrails, but the scenery is incredible. As you're going along these mountain passes, there are moments, I think we have at least one picture where, yeah, that one right there, where it's just like, hey, here's the road, and then you're dead. Like, that's it. It's like a James Bond movie. You know what I'm talking about? It's like one of those. And when you're kind of winding through those roads, if you just take your eyes off the road for a second, even though it's this incredibly gorgeous looking thing, the road is what's important, unless you stop. If you put it in park, that's fine. I don't know where you'll stand on that road if there's someone coming the other way. But let's pretend there's no one else. If you put it in park, and then maybe you can, but you can't go any further. You can't enjoy the scenery while you're also on the road. But it is gorgeous. It's definitely something worth looking at. I would say that this scenic drive describes the life of our David we've been studying the last few weeks. Incredibly gorgeous. But if you take your eyes off the road, even for a moment, you might just fall off the side. Unfortunately, I think it might actually apply to more than just David. I think there's a good chance that this $1 Million Highway applies to each one of us. For sure, I know it applies to me. Our setting this morning is the last little piece of our David series, probably an inappropriately short series of 3 weeks where we attempted to digest some of the highlights of the life of David. And today we come across a string of 4 chapters, chapter 8, chapter 9, chapter 10, and chapter 11 of the book of 2 Samuel, which chronicles the life of David, well, much of the life of David. And so at this point, David has been anointed king. Remember, if you were here a couple of weeks ago, David was the shepherd boy, the youngest of 8 siblings. And Saul was the king of Israel, but Saul had done some things that God was not okay with anymore. And so he said, hey, you know what? You're done as king. Your days are numbered. And so I'm going to anoint a new king. And so David was anointed. He was the one that no one thought deserved to be king. He didn't look like a king, didn't act like a king. He didn't have the lineage of a king. He didn't even have the birth order standing of a king. Yet he was the one that was anointed. David grows up, and last week we looked at this coming out party for David where he has these 5 smooth stones that he takes from a creek bed the size of a grown man's fist. And he went to war against a Goliath. And as he looked at that Goliath, as he went back and forth with one another, he recognized that it wasn't just David versus Goliath. It was God, Yahweh, Jehovah God, the God we just got done worshiping versus false gods. That it was a one-on-one battle, but at the end of the day, it wasn't him fighting, God was fighting through him. We fast forward a little bit. At that point, David was still a boy. Now, David is a king. And in chapter 8, it gives this list of victories that David has accumulated, these notches on his belt, right? These nicks in the baseball bat. You following me? He has just destroyed places. He's conquered lands. The nation of Israel has become something to be reckoned with. And there's this list in chapter 8. Two that I want to point out in particular. The Philistines are on this list of folks he's defeated. Since the days of the judges, generations prior to David, the Philistines have been a thorn in the nation of Israel's side, constantly poking and prodding and owning who they were. They're on the list. He defeated them. The Moabites, a very traditional enemy of the people of God, going all the way back to the time of Moses. They're on the list. There's actually a really long list of a lot of names that I would struggle to pronounce for you. You can go back and look at them, but the list just keeps going on, and God gave him victory over these folks, and these folks, and these folks, and this king, and these people. Chapter 8 is a pretty incredible resume. Unfortunately, it doesn't end at chapter 8. We get these ideas where you wished it would. There's even some hints that maybe this victory march will continue. In 2 Samuel chapter 8, verse 14, it says this: the Lord gave David victory wherever he went. That is something to walk around to. I don't know if you inscribe that on a plaque in cursive and hang it in your home next to your rest of your Joanna Gaines stuff, but that's something to hold on to. And the Lord gave him victory everywhere he went. Man, that's something to be proud of. Everything seems to be falling into place. This is the time of his life. You follow that up right there, the very next verse, 8 verse 15. David reigned over all Israel, doing what was just and right for all his people. David's got it. And David is on this road of life. And he has made sure that all of the spoils of war and victory and conquering nation after nation, that even though it's incredible to look at, he's kept his eyes on the road and what's in front of him, because he's recognized that those things on the side, those are just temporary. That the thing in front of him is to continue to lead the people of Israel. So he keeps his eyes fixed on the road. As tempting as it is to stop and look at the view, he makes sure he stays focused. That's chapter 8, this incredible resume. Chapter 9 is a story. David is feeling generous, part of his being just to everyone he comes in contact with. He has this kind of run-in where there's the king of the Ammonites. He has passed away. And the king of the Ammonites actually signed a treaty with the former king of Israel, Saul. And in that treaty, they said, hey, we're going to be nice to each other. It was a peace treaty. You can actually find it in 1 Samuel chapter 11, verse 1 through 11. There's a little thing there of how the treaty came to be. And so David has honored that. Even though David's a new king, he's honored the treaty that was made by his predecessor. And so that king has passed away. And so David has a choice to make. Does he want to continue to honor the treaty that was made with the king that's now dead, or does he want to do something different? Well, David decides to honor the king and to honor the king's son by sending a delegation to say, hey, we're bringing our condolences to you. We're sorry. To extend this treaty. Well, the son, Hanan, he didn't see it as that. In fact, his advisors came to him and said, you know what? David is trying to trick you. He's on this goodwill tour. But honestly, if we really look at David, we know he is war hungry. He's power hungry. He's probably trying to scout out our land and figure out what way he can deceive us. And so they took the delegation and they captured them. They cut off half of their beard. Just zoop, 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 zoop. I did that a few weeks ago. It looked weird. Not only did they cut off half of their beard, they cut off half their clothes. They went right above their rear end and just took some scissors or some shears and went around. And so everything from like here down was exposed. And then they sent them out into public. Like they kicked them out of the palace and there they were in the market. Half naked with half a beard. For a Jewish man, you couldn't get much more insulted or disgraced. To have your private parts exposed in public it wasn't a good thing. There's no joking or laughing it off. It doesn't become a, hey, remember that time moment 10 years down the road. It becomes you brought shame on your family, even if it wasn't something that you caused or agreed to. It was complete dishonor. So David had a choice to make. So David went after them. In fact, he sent his general after them, and the folks got so scared, they're like, man, what did we do? David's going to destroy us. They were right. So they hired a bunch of mercenaries, over 30,000 men they hired. And they said, well, you know what, we're going to have one battle line here, and then we're going to hide the rest of those mercenaries in the woods. And when David's forces gets here, we're going to go around behind them. The problem was that God was fighting with David's army, and immediately they saw it, and they split their forces in half, and they just whipped their tail. And the resume continued to grow. They defeated them. In fact, the commander of the army for David looks at his men before they go into battle, and they say this, be strong, and let us fight bravely for our people and for the cities of our God. The Lord will do what is good in his sight. That's how David and his folks were rolling. You know what? We're just going to take it a step in front of us, one at a time. We're going to keep our eyes on the road, and God's going to do what God's going to do. And we will be satisfied with whatever God decides. That's an incredible way to live. That's an incredible way to organize and to orchestrate your life. To say, you know what? I know that I'm on the path I'm supposed to be on, and all I can do is keep my eyes on the road and just say, whatever happens, happens. I'm going to leave that up to God. I'm just going to do what I'm supposed to do. Stay on the road. Stay on the path that God has given me. There's this place where, right in this little kind of go of 4 chapters, is a place where David is feeling a little bit generous, and he reaches out to a friend of his, and he says, hey, is there anyone from Saul's lineage still around? Right? So Saul was the king before him. Saul tried to kill David multiple times and never could do it. Finally, Saul died in battle, and then David took the throne as king. Well, David reached out and said, hey, is there anyone left from his family anywhere? And they found a kid, a grandson, actually the son of one of David's friends growing up, Jonathan. This guy's name was Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth, whatever you want to call him. We'll call him Fib. And so David was like, hey, bring Fib to me. I want to meet him. They said, well, he's lame in both of his feet. He can't walk. He says, well, bring him. Pick him up and bring him. And so he brings him before him, and he's sitting there, and he's like, look, I know this is not the way it works. I know this is typically not how things go. I know usually you kind of get rid of all the lineage and the people that were from your predecessor, the king before you, but I'm not going to do that. I want to honor you. And so I want to give you all of the land and everything that your grandfather owned. All of it, I'm giving it back to you. And not only that, I'm going to provide for you a head of household that will then fix all the grounds, because obviously this guy couldn't do it because he couldn't walk. He said, I'm going to give you a bunch of servants, a bunch of people to come and work the land and to provide. And on top of that, I'm going to treat you as my own son. I want to have you at my dinner table every night. That's what he did. And over again, David continues to make decisions that honor God. David continues to put himself in a place where he's just keeping his eyes on the road. And then chapter 11, verse 1 happens. I'll read it to you. 2 Samuel 11:1. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. You see what happened there? God's put this path on him, and the author of this book is trying to tell us that David has pulled off to the side of the road in an unsafe spot. He gives us this clue because he says, in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab. Joab's not the king. David's the king. In fact, he sent Joab with the king's men. And so David actually had this separate fighting force. We actually see them in throughout this little piece of the Bible as the mighty men, David's mighty men. And they're pretty impressive, and we're going to actually talk about these men in January or February at length. But when we started to look at this, we saw that there was some accountability, there was some camaraderie, there was some brotherhood happening in these mighty men. And David said, Joab, you take my men, these incredible folks, and you take the whole army, and you go do what we normally do in the spring. And I'm going to hang out here at the palace. I'm going to stay home, just hang out. Responsibility is weighty sometimes, isn't it? I mean, there are moments in our lives, there are moments when we're kind of making stuff happen in our world, and the responsibility when we're driving on the road and we're kind of following, it does get weighty every once in a while. You're like, come on, can't I catch a break? Can't I just have a little bit of breathing room? Maybe that's what David was pursuing. But for some reason, the author of the book gives us the hint that David pulled off to the side of the road, but it wasn't the time to pull off to the side of the road. At the end of the day, I would say this would be accurate. Responsibility, while at times feels burdensome, is often the greatest protection we have from our own destructive wanderings. Have you ever viewed your responsibility that God has given you as protection for you? And don't we pursue this life where at some point in our lives we can just say, you know what, I'm done with my responsibilities. My kids are married and they're done. I've done with my job, right? Like I don't have anything. I got somebody that comes cleans my house. Like I have absolutely nothing to do except for whatever I want to do. Or maybe it happens a little prematurely. We're like, I'm like 27 years old and I can't wait to retire. I can't wait to have no responsibilities. We say responsibility is just too much. Have we ever looked at it as protection as opposed to a burden? What's the old saying? That idle hands are the devil's workshop. Have you heard that before? Maybe it's more than a saying. Maybe there's actually something to it. Maybe God designed us to be involved in what kingdom purposes God has for us. Maybe God designed us to continue to pursue what he's put in front of us. That the pursuit of being godly is something we never attain. That maybe we do get to a place where our income and our retirement says, you know what, you don't have to work anymore. But just because we stop working in the vocational workplace, does that mean we stop working to be a man or a woman after God's own heart? Does that work ever stop? Do we ever get to take a rest pursuing who God really intends us to be? In chapter 11, verse 2, it says that David couldn't sleep. He got up from his bed and he walked around. I don't know if this was guilt getting to him because his men were out there doing what men do when they go to battle. I don't know if he was feeling just a little bit like, I probably shouldn't be here. I mean, everybody knows it's the spring and this is when kings go out to war. They can look around the palace and see my men are gone. My mighty men are gone. The ones that are closest to me, my major fighters, my accountability, they're gone. They don't see the soldiers walking up and down the street in mass anymore because they're all where they're supposed to be except for David. It says he couldn't sleep, and so he got up from his bed and was walking around. And he says he saw a woman named Bathsheba bathing on her roof. He walks out of his little bedroom and onto maybe a little balcony. And as he's looking down, he sees some of the houses. And then there's a woman with a large pail of water on top of her roof in the dark, bathing. She was naked. That's what you do when you take a bath. And David saw her naked and said, this was worth pulling over for. This is worth taking a break for. And so he went back inside and he told one of his servants, he said, hey, that girl, you'll know her when you see her because she's naked on a roof. Will you go get her, please? And sure enough, they do. They don't think twice about it. They go and get her. I don't know if they knock on the door and they're like, hey, King saw you bathing on the roof and wanted you to come and say, hey. I don't know what time it is. I don't know if it's 2 a.m. I just know he was in bed and he got up out of bed. I don't know how the conversation goes at her front door. I don't know if he just shouted from the street, hey, lady, the king said come see him. He's been watching you. But that's what she does. She comes down, she goes inside of the castle, the palace. She finds her way up to his bedroom. And then they do what he wanted to do. It turns out that it wasn't someone who was available. She wasn't even available to date. Even if they wanted to skip what God had intended in terms of sexual intimacy between two married people, even if he wanted to pursue that, she wasn't available. She was married. In fact, the reason she was so close to the palace is because she was married to one of the king's men. One of the top of the top, a guy named Uriah. That's why she had a house so close to the palace. Honestly, David probably had a hint. And so they did their thing, and it turns out what they did makes babies. She gets pregnant. David's a problem solver. So he says, okay, I got you. We've got to make this problem go away. We've got to make it go away. And so he starts thinking, how can I make this go away? And so he makes the decision. He's like, you know what? I'm going to call Uriah home. I'm going to call him home from war. He's going to come home, and I'm going to say, you know what? You've earned it. I'm going to ask you a couple questions about how the battle's going. You're going to fill me in. And then I'm going to say, you know what? Why don't you enjoy a couple nights at home? And then he's been away from his wife for some time doing battle. And so he'll come home, and he'll be like just loving up on her. And then they'll never know who the kid is. That's his plan. So sure enough, Uriah comes home, and he's like, yes, sir, I'm here to report. And so he asks him a couple questions. How's the men? How's the fighting? Yeah, okay, great. Let's skip to you should enjoy just some time at home. And so Uriah's like, man, thank you. But he doesn't go home. He refuses to go in his house. When David finds out that he slept outside, he calls him and he's like, Uriah, what are you doing? Why did you sleep outside last night? He said, well, this is not where I'm supposed to be. All of my men are out fighting. They're all in the open country. This is not where I'm supposed to be. So I'm not going to, I don't, who am I to deserve to come back to my wife? And so David starts to get a picture of how he should have behaved the whole time. And so he takes it a step further. He goes to plan 2. Like this little lie, the tiny cover-up's not working. So he's got to kind of take it. He said, you know what? Stay with me one more day. I just want to hang out. Let's have some bro time. Let's just hang out. We're going to have a few drinks. It's going to be fine. And specifically, actually what it says in 11:12, verse 13, it says this. Then David said to him, stay here one more day, and tomorrow I will send you back. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. At David's invitation, he ate and drank with him, and David made him drunk. But in the evening, Uriah went out to sleep on his mat among his master's servants. He did not go home. Even drunk Uriah had more integrity than sober David. David has a problem. So the first cover-up didn't work. He took it to the next level, and it didn't work. He's running out of options. And just being honest about it is the farthest option from his mind. And so he writes a letter. He writes a letter to the commander of the army that says, hey, put Uriah at the front lines where the fighting is the most harsh. And then pull back. You know what's crazy is he took that letter and he folded it and he put a seal on it and he handed it to Uriah and said, carry this letter to your commander. So Uriah, I don't know if he got on a horse or a chariot, I don't know what he got. But he made his way carrying his own death warrant. I wonder what Joab's face looked like when he opened up the letter in front of Uriah and read it. I wonder if he kind of peered up over the letter to Uriah. I wonder if Uriah was like, what is it? You look concerned. The Bible doesn't tell us about that interaction. It just tells us that he did what David asked. And he asked Uriah to go to where the heaviest fighting was. And because Uriah is who Uriah is, he says, I don't back down from a challenge. Absolutely, I'll go. I'll go. And then there was a moment when the fighting was intense and they pulled back and Uriah died. He just put it in park for a moment. Chapter 8, chapter 9, and chapter 10, this incredible resume. And the resume, while it only takes a chapter to kind of give, it was years of work. Years of work. And then there's a couple of stories about a king's son after his father died where he wanted to extend some generosity. Didn't go well because he didn't receive it. But then this other king's grandson who was lame where he gives these gifts and goes over and above. Just a few stories where David is absolutely driving on the road. The most important thing when you're driving on a road where there's cliffs on each side is not to take a look at the view. Man, Satan sure does make it pretty, doesn't he? I think there's a place where we can get in our lives where we say, you know what, I got this thing in cruise control. Chapter 8, chapter 9, and chapter 10 were so good, I can't wait to see what happens in chapter 11. And we're just cruising down the road, and we got it in cruise control, and it's at that moment when Satan says, this is when I want to do my stuff. You see, Satan strikes when your guard is down, when all the world is right. Have you ever heard someone say, man, everything's going so good in my life, I'm waiting for something else to happen? That's because life is real and life is complicated. People are complex. Life never just continues to go as planned because you have to live life with other people. And other people don't do everything that you want them to do all the time. And thank goodness, living in bubbles are no fun. But living in community with people, solving problems and watching one another grow and spurring one another on to acts of good deeds and change within our community, that's worth it. But Satan says, the moment that you think you've got it all figured out, that's the moment I'll strike. That's what happens with David. Did you also notice how Satan moved in David's kind of escalation of theory of how he was going to solve his problem? Satan works you from the little thoughts to large consequences. That's the truth. He didn't start off with the thought from the very beginning, oh, I'm pregnant, I'll kill him. That's not how it started. No, it was just a simple little thing. This just simple little, you know what, let's just switcheroo this bad boy. I mean, at the time, David's got a couple wives anyway, and kids, and it just is what it is. That's fine. That's what he's thinking in his mind. We'll just pull a little switcheroo. Everything will be great. When that doesn't work, he says, you know what, I'll manipulate him. Not only will I manipulate his wife and all these things, I'm going to manipulate him. I'm going to drug him, drunk him. And then I'm going to get him to do what I want him to do. And when that doesn't work, it's just the next thing. Satan works you from the little thoughts to large consequences. This is the truth. Satan wants each of us to ruin our lives and the lives of others. Let that sink in for a second. Satan wants every single one of us to ruin our lives and the lives of others. That is a sobering thought. Then when he wakes up each day, he understands that if our lives aren't ruined, then they are connected to God. That at the end of the day, when everything kind of ceases in this world, people who are connected to God, your life continues. And people that are not, your life comes to ruin. That is what Satan is pursuing. That is what he's chasing after. That is what he wants for your life. It'd be fine if it was just, you know what, he just wants to ruin your life. But have you ever sat and thought that the ruin of your life actually has a massive effect of those around you? You might say, no, it's just me. And what I'm doing, what I'm participating in my life, it doesn't hurt anyone else. This is my decision, my body, my choices. This is what I'm doing. It doesn't affect anyone else. I belong to me, and that's not true. You do not belong to you. You've never belonged to you. You belong to God. 100% of the time, all the time. And then after you belong to God, once you've entered into a covenant of marriage, you belong to your spouse. Whether it's husband to wife or wife to husband. And then once God has given you kids, you belong to those kids. And when God's planted you into a community, you belong to that community. There's never a moment when what you do only affects you. There is no such thing as a sin that is only harmful to you. I guess the question is, how do you stay on guard and avoid it? How do you avoid this from happening in your life? We might say accountability. These mighty men, they would have had a little more leeway with the king. They would have had a little more leeway. Maybe one of them is a personal bodyguard. I don't know how it works, but maybe one. But they're sitting there interacting, and so maybe the guy that's at the door for David's bedroom, when he opens it up, he's like, "Hey, there's a girl bathing. She's naked on the roof. You should go get her. For me, not for you, for me." Maybe if it's one of his men, he's like, that's Uriah's wife. Are you sure that's what you want me to do? But no, David was surrounded by a bunch of yes men that didn't have the guts to stand up to him, didn't care for him enough to say, you know what, this is the best thing for your life. They were just, yes, sir, right away, sir. I'll do it, sir. Accountability is a great place to start. To invite someone into your life that's not just going to say, yes, sir, oh, that's a great idea. But might push back a little bit and say, are you really sure that's what you want to do? I'm going to ask this time, because next time, if you say yes again, I'm going to say that's bad. But the first time I'm going to ask politely, are you sure? Because that's a stupid idea. You need people like that in your life. I'll tell you this, know the difference between idleness and rest. Rest is responsible, while idleness is reckless. Resting is actually something you do. Idleness is just blank space, where you're trying to figure something out. Like, when it gets here, it'll come. You can be intentional about rest. You can be intentional about recharging your batteries. You can be intentional about a season of less responsibility. But that doesn't mean that you, in your rest, you stop or discontinue your work as being a follower of Jesus. At the end of the day, I would say if you don't remember anything else from today, you should remember this. Never stop asking God what's next. Any of y'all ever watched The West Wing? So I still am addicted to The West Wing. I've watched all 8 seasons. I own them on VHS. Just letting you know, okay? The West Wing was incredible. I have just this affection for the White House and all things White House-ity, you know. I know, it's not a word. But I just love it. And so when The West Wing came out and they kind of pretended to show the inner workings of the White House, and they would go from one room to another, and these political thoughts and this problem solving that would happen within the confines of this West Wing, right? And the president was there. I don't remember the president's name. I can never remember his name. What's his name? Anybody? He's got, you know what I'm saying? He's got little kids that are big now. Martin Sheen? Yeah, is his name Martin Sheen? Okay, great. So anyway, his character throughout the entirety of the series, they would solve one problem, and the moment it was solved, what did he say? What's next? He would close the folder. I'm glad we figured that out. What's next? And they would begin into the next episode. That's what we got to do with our relationship with God. There's never a moment when we got to say, you know what, God, thank you so much. Now you just chill because I'm going to just settle right here, okay? Like I know you know what's best. I know you've got great plans for me, but if you can just give me a 30-day, timeout, send me to Hawaii, put me on a beach. No, we just got to say, what's next? Sometimes God will send you to a beach. Adam, our student pastor, he's been praying that God will send him to a beach to retire at a little church somewhere. Aren't we all? I'm just kidding. I'm not. I hate the beach. My wife is, though. What's next? When we're constantly in a posture of God, what's next? It puts us in a place where we recognize that the priorities in our lives are not set by us, but it's set by us asking the question of someone who has all the answers. We say, God, I don't know, but I'm willing. Whatever you put on my list, that's next. Satan makes the scenery incredibly gorgeous. But Satan also has removed all the guardrails. In the moments where you want to just stop and pull over, when you want to come to a stop in your life, man, it's good to look at. But God say, no, keep it in drive. Keep your eyes on the road I've made for you. That's what's next. What's next for you this morning? Literally, what is next for you?